Imagine dedicating your life to building something revolutionary, something that could change the world, only to have someone, an influential figure, publicly tear it apart. What if that figure wasn't just a random critic, but a respected professor? A man with the power to shape the opinions of an entire generation? How would you respond if this person mocked everything you stood for, belittling your work, your ideas, your vision? This isn't just about one man's opinion. It's about a battle of ideas. It's about a war between two worldviews. One that believes in thinking big, challenging the status quo and embracing the future at all costs, and another that clings to outdated ideas, entrenched in academia, unwilling to see beyond the walls of tradition. And what if, instead of retaliating with petty insults or getting lost in a public feud, the man who was being insulted fired back, not with words, but with something far more powerful? What if he showed the world that the true measure of success isn't in how many times you're knocked down, but in how you rise, again and again, to prove everyone wrong? This isn't just a story of conflict, it's a story of vision, resilience, and the ultimate poetic justice. It's the story of how Elon Musk, the man who redefined industries, turned the tables on a liberal professor who thought he could tear him down. What happened when the professor publicly insulted Musk? You won't believe how it all turned around, and how Musk's response was more than just a victory. It was a lesson in the power of innovation, conviction, and the refusal to be defined by the words of others. Stick with me, because the story that's about to unfold is one of the greatest turnarounds you'll ever witness. For years, Elon Musk had been the subject of ridicule, but he'd learned to embrace the mockery. The more people doubted him, the harder he worked to prove them wrong. He had already been dismissed for his ventures with Tesla, laughed at for aiming to colonize Mars, and ridiculed for believing in self-driving cars. Yet each time, he'd shown the world that his bold ideas weren't just fantasy, they were the future. But this time was different. This wasn't a random critic, a social media troll, or an angry journalist. This time the attack came from someone with actual influence, Dr. Richards, a professor at a prestigious university. The kind of man whose words carried weight in the academic world. Dr. Richards had made it clear that he didn't just disagree with Musk's work, he openly mocked him in front of an audience of students. Musk was a dreamer, a billionaire with too much money and not enough sense. According to Dr. Richards, Musk's ventures weren't innovative. They were reckless, misguided fantasies. For Musk, this wasn't just about defending his work. It was personal. Richards didn't just attack his ideas, he attacked his very identity, questioning the worth of Musk's entire existence as a visionary. Musk had spent years battling skepticism from the public and the media, but a respected academic like Richards, whose opinions shaped the minds of future leaders, was something Musk couldn't ignore. If anything, the criticism felt more personal because of the source. Dr. Richards was supposed to be someone who encouraged new ideas, someone who inspired students to think beyond the conventional. Instead, he had become a voice of the old guard, resistant to change and quick to dismiss anything that didn't fit within the rigid confines of traditional academic thinking. What made the situation even worse was the sheer power Dr. Richards wielded. As an influential figure in academia, Richards wasn't just a voice among many. He was the gatekeeper of knowledge, someone whose opinions were respected and often followed by eager students. His words had the potential to shape the future of the next generation of innovators, and Musk knew that. The young minds who listened to Dr. Richards could easily turn against him, questioning his vision, his ambition, and his entire approach to innovation. Musk had always faced obstacles, but this attack felt different. This wasn't just some minor setback. Dr. Richards was using his authority to cast doubt on everything Musk had worked for, his dreams, his ambition, and his vision of a future that didn't just follow the path set before it, but created entirely new roads. In Dr. Richards' eyes, Musk was nothing more than a fool, a man whose success was based on nothing but luck. The unfairness of it festered inside Musk. He had spent his entire career fighting against the very system Dr. Richards represented, the system that valued intellectual safety over real-world risk, the system that rewarded those who followed the rules but punished those who dared to break them. In Richard's eyes, Musk was a man who played outside the lines, and for that, he was seen as a threat to the established order. But it wasn't just about Musk. This was a larger issue about the way society viewed risk-takers, dreamers, and innovators. People like Musk, who challenged the status quo and dreamed of changing the world, were often dismissed as impractical or unrealistic. And here was Dr. Richards, reinforcing that very mindset. He represented the conventional, the established world that told people to stay in line, to follow the rules, and to never reach too far for the stars. For Musk, this was a direct challenge to everything he believed in. His entire career had been built on the idea that the impossible could be achieved, that failure wasn't a setback, but a learning opportunity, and that the world needed dreamers to push boundaries and make change happen. And yet here was a respected figure telling the world that Musk's vision wasn't worth anything, that it was just a foolish attempt at grandeur. It wasn't just about defending his own name, it was about defending a way of thinking, a mindset that dared to challenge the conventions of society and push the boundaries of what was possible. Musk knew that if he didn't respond, he would be allowing this worldview to take root, not just in the minds of those who already doubted him, but in the minds of future generations. This attack wasn't just an insult, it was a representation of everything that was wrong with the old guard's way of thinking. It was a rejection of innovation, of the very thing that could change the future. And that, more than anything, is what Musk couldn't allow to go unchallenged. The question remained, how would he respond? What would be his next move in this battle of ideas? The answer wasn't yet clear, but Musk knew this was a fight he couldn't afford to lose. And the stakes were higher than ever. Elon Musk sat in the quiet of his office, the weight of Dr. Richards' words still echoing in his mind. The professor's mockery had cut deeper than Musk had anticipated. It wasn't just the ridicule of his ideas. It was the suggestion that all of his life's work, his unrelenting drive, was just a misguided attempt at grandeur. For the first time in years, Musk felt the sting of doubt. Was he really a visionary? Or was he just a man with more money than sense, like Richards had claimed? The doubt was suffocating. Musk had spent so much time pushing forward, doing what others said couldn't be done, that he hadn't taken a moment to stop and reflect. The criticism from Richards had hit a nerve, not because it was new, but because it felt different this time. Dr. Richards wasn't just a critic from the outside world. He was someone who belonged to the very institution that Musk had always seen as outdated, the very system that stifled creativity, that rejected risk, that told people like Musk to stay in their lane. And in this moment, that system had struck back. Musk's first instinct was to fight back. He could already picture it. A well-crafted tweet, a public rebuke, a scathing remark that would put Richards in his place. After all, Musk had done it before. He had fought back against the media, against critics, and against the doubters. But this felt different. He wasn't fighting just to defend his reputation. This time the stakes felt higher. This wasn't just a personal battle. It was about something bigger, the very ideals that Musk had built his companies on. It was about proving that vision, courage, and persistence were more valuable than the safety of the status quo. But as the hours passed, Musk realized that responding in the way everyone expected would only reinforce the very narrative that Richards had set in motion. Richards had dismissed Musk as a dreamer, as someone out of touch with reality. And if Musk simply responded with anger, with snark, with the same tactics he had used in the past, he would be doing exactly what Richards wanted. The professor would win by making Musk appear petty, reactionary, and worst of all, vulnerable. The thought gnawed at him. Musk had always prided himself on being a disruptor, someone who didn't just react but took control of the narrative. So, what was the answer? What was the right move? It was in this moment, as the weight of Richards' words continued to press on him, that Musk realized something that shifted the entire course of his thinking. He didn't need to respond to the criticism at all. What he needed was to let his actions do the talking. The more he thought about it, the clearer it became. Richards wasn't just dismissing Musk's ideas. He was dismissing an entire philosophy of innovation, the very foundation on which Musk had built his empire. And if Musk could show the world that his ideas were already turning into something real, something that no academic critique could take away, then Richards' words would fall flat. It was a moment of clarity, but it came with its own kind of pressure. Musk could no longer afford to play defense. He had to go on the offensive, not with words, but with results. This wasn't about fighting fire with fire. It was about proving, without a shadow of a doubt, that Musk's vision wasn't just a dream. It was a reality that could change the world. But even as the decision became clear in Musk's mind, a lingering question remained. Would it be enough? Musk had always been a man of action, but the stakes had never felt this high. Richards' words had reached beyond just Musk. He had made an intellectual attack on the entire world of innovation, casting doubt on a generation of dreamers who dared to think differently. Musk could no longer afford to be reactive. He had to show the world that the future was already in motion, and it was unstoppable. The breaking moment came not in the heat of a public exchange or a sudden flash of inspiration, but in the quiet realization that Musk had always been 3 steps ahead. This was his chance to demonstrate, not just through words, but through undeniable proof that his vision wasn't some fleeting fantasy. It was the next step in human progress. Musk wasn't just playing to win against Dr. Richards. He was playing to change the very game itself. And that decision, that quiet yet resolute shift in mindset, changed everything. The power had already shifted. The narrative was no longer in Dr. Richards' hands. It was in Musk's, and he was ready to take it and run with it. This was no longer about fighting for recognition. This was about proving to the world that no one, not even the most respected intellectuals, could define what was possible. The real fight was just beginning, and Musk wasn't about to lose. Elon Musk had kept his cards close to his chest. The world had been watching, waiting for his response to Dr. Richards' sharp criticism. Most expected him to fire back with his usual blunt force, an angry tweet, a public confrontation, maybe even an interview where he could dismantle Richards' claims. But Musk remained silent. He didn't give the public what they expected, and in doing so, he made a decision that would change everything. Musk's silence wasn't weakness, it was strategy. It was his way of saying that the battle wasn't going to be won with words. The fight would be decided by actions, by results that no one could deny. He had already been dismissed as a fool, a dreamer, someone who didn't understand the world. But Musk knew the truth. He had been playing a different game all along. While the world expected him to react with anger or defensiveness, Musk had been quietly working on something that would prove all of his critics wrong. Dr. Richards, on the other hand, had no idea what was coming. His smug confidence had grown in the weeks after his public attack on Musk. He believed he had successfully undermined Musk's credibility, proving to his students and colleagues that Musk's grand visions were nothing more than empty promises. To him, the attack had been more than just a critique of a billionaire's dreams. It was a defense of intellectualism, of the grounded, rational world of academia that could never be shaken by the whims of a tech mogul. But Musk wasn't just a businessman. He was a man who had learned how to take hits and come back stronger. The silence that had followed Richards' insults was deliberate. Musk knew that the more Richards spoke, the more the professor would entrench himself in his own arrogance. And in that silence, Musk had quietly set the stage for a revelation that would send shockwaves through the academic world and beyond. The moment came when Musk made an unexpected announcement. It wasn't just another launch or project update. It was something much bigger. Musk revealed a groundbreaking partnership between Tesla and several of the top universities in the world. These weren't just any universities. These were institutions that had long been associated with the academic elite, the very same institutions where Dr. Richards had made his name, institutions that represented the heart of traditional intellectualism. Musk wasn't just working with these universities. He was opening up Tesla's groundbreaking research to them. He was offering the very thing Dr. Richards and others in academia had claimed Musk lacked: intellectual rigor. Musk had quietly assembled a team of top engineers, scientists, and researchers, many of whom had left behind prestigious academic careers to join his companies. And now, Musk was giving them the opportunity to work alongside some of the most respected professors and researchers in the world, with the resources to back their work in ways academia could never match. The news hit like a bombshell. Richards had no idea what was coming. In his attempt to undermine Musk, he had failed to see that Musk wasn't some outlier or rogue entrepreneur. He was part of a growing movement that was reshaping the entire landscape of knowledge, innovation, and education. Musk's quiet move had exposed the flaws in the academic world, revealing how its insular nature had failed to adapt to the changing demands of the real world. Dr. Richards, who had so confidently dismissed Musk as an outsider, suddenly found himself facing a situation where Musk's influence was undeniable. The very people Richards had thought were part of his intellectual circle, researchers, professors, and thought leaders, were now working directly with Musk, collaborating on projects that would change the world. Musk wasn't just proving that he could innovate in the tech space. He was proving that the world of business and academia weren't as separate as Richards had once believed. But the impact didn't stop there. The announcement sent ripples through the world of academia. Students, the very ones Dr. Richards had once influenced, began to question the narrow framework that had been pushed on them. They saw that Musk was offering them a different path, a path where their ideas, no matter how unconventional, could be tested in the real world. And it wasn't just about technology. Musk was showing them that the future wasn't defined by outdated hierarchies or rigid systems. It was shaped by people who were willing to take risks, to push boundaries, and to fail in order to succeed. For Richards, the shift was staggering. He had built his career by deconstructing ideas, by explaining away dreams that seemed too big to be practical. But now his position of power began to crumble. The students who had once idolized him were now questioning everything he had taught them. They saw that Musk wasn't just a billionaire with big ideas. He was someone who had figured out how to turn those ideas into action, into results that couldn't be ignored. Dr. Richards found himself caught in a web of his own making. As the world of academia and business collided in ways he couldn't have predicted, he realized that his worldview was crumbling. The very foundation of his beliefs, ideas that had been celebrated for decades, was now being exposed as outdated. He had been so sure of his own intellectual superiority that he hadn't seen the tide turning. The world was changing, and Musk had figured out how to harness that change in ways that Richards couldn't even comprehend. And that's when the true reversal happened. The power shifted. Richards had tried to use his status to tear Musk down, but in doing so, he had exposed his own weaknesses, his inability to understand the world Musk was building. Musk wasn't just proving that he was right. He was proving that his vision was the future, one that would shape the world for generations to come. Richards had dismissed Musk as a fool. What he didn't realize was that Musk had already won, not with words, but with action. And now, it was too late for Richards to turn back. He had underestimated Musk in the most critical way, by thinking he was playing the same game. The world had already shifted. And Richards, he was just a spectator now. The moment of truth was now in motion. Dr. Richards, the respected professor, had spent his career dismissing the very kind of people like Elon Musk, the dreamers, the innovators, those who refused to follow traditional paths. Richards had been the epitome of intellectual authority, a man whose power lay in his ability to shape minds and influence future leaders. But with his public attack on Musk, he had unknowingly set the stage for his own downfall. As the days passed since Musk's silence, his actions began to speak volumes. The announcement of his groundbreaking partnership with top universities was the catalyst that would unravel everything Richards had worked so hard to build. Musk wasn't just proving that his ideas had merit, he was demonstrating that his approach to innovation was what the world needed now more than ever. While Dr. Richards had spent his time lecturing about the importance of theoretical knowledge, Musk had quietly created a network of collaborations with world-class universities. Musk wasn't interested in just talking about change. He was actively making it happen. By opening Tesla's groundbreaking research to top academic minds, he was showing that real progress didn't just come from academic theory. It came from real-world action, from taking risks, and from testing bold ideas. The collaboration was proof that Musk's companies weren't just about profits. They were about creating tangible, world-changing results that would impact industries, economies, and lives. Richards had no idea how to respond. His once infallible belief in the superiority of academia began to crumble in the face of Musk's undeniable success. While Richards was busy holding on to his theoretical ideals, Musk was proving that ideas alone weren't enough. Action was what mattered. Results were what counted. Musk had built companies that were changing the game, and he was doing it with the kind of audacity that Richards had always dismissed. But Richards' control wasn't the only thing slipping. His influence over his students, once unchallenged, began to fade. Students who had once hung on his every word were now questioning the very system he had championed. They saw the success of Musk's ventures, and they realized that the future wasn't about following the traditional paths laid out by the intellectual elite. It was about breaking away from those confines and thinking bigger, about creating, not just discussing. And the more Musk's success grew, the more Richards' credibility diminished. Dr. Richards, in his arrogance, had underestimated the power of innovation and real-world results. He had assumed that his position in academia would shield him from any real consequences, that his prestige would keep him above the fray. But the reality was that Musk's vision was winning, and Richards couldn't deny it. The world had moved on, and in doing so, it had exposed the fatal flaw in Richards' worldview. Progress doesn't wait for intellectual validation. It moves forward, with or without approval from the establishment. For Musk, this wasn't just about proving Dr. Richards wrong. It was about demonstrating that his way of thinking, his boldness and vision, was the future. While Richards clung to outdated ideas, Musk was building a future that was already taking shape. And in that realization, Musk found his greatest strength. He didn't need to respond with words. His actions, his successes, and the world he was creating spoke louder than anything Richards could ever say. Richards had underestimated Musk, thinking that his world of academic credentials and intellectual rigor could silence the likes of him. But Musk had already proven, time and time again, that success wasn't defined by degrees or theoretical knowledge. It was defined by results. And Musk wasn't just achieving success, he was building something that would change the world forever. As the days went on, it became clear that Musk had already won. The partnership with the universities wasn't just a move to silence critics. It was a statement that the future wasn't about staying within the confines of what was comfortable and known. The future belonged to those who were willing to take risks, to challenge the status quo, and to create something new. And that was Musk's greatest victory. Dr. Richards, once so confident in his intellectual superiority, found himself a relic of the past. His ideas, his criticisms, and his worldview were no longer relevant in a world that was moving forward without him. The students who had once revered him were now looking toward a different kind of future. They saw that change didn't come from the ivory towers of academia. It came from the people who were willing to do the impossible. Musk didn't need to fight back. His greatest revenge had already been served. Richards had lost everything: his authority, his respect, and his relevance in a world that had already passed him by. And Musk, he walked away with something far greater: dignity, respect, and a powerful lesson that he had already learned. The world rewards those who dare to dream and to act on those dreams. The world rewards those who build the future, not just talk about it. In the end, Musk's victory wasn't about proving Richards wrong. It was about proving that the future is never built by those who stay rooted in the past. It's built by those who dare to move forward, to challenge the established order, and to create something greater than anyone could have imagined. Richards had underestimated Musk's vision, and in doing so, he had lost everything. Musk had, already won, not with words but with the undeniable power of action and innovation.